considering a massive attack bigger than ever before. I am close to making a decision. We are all set for it.
So let's talk about the current situation with Iran, because B-2 bombers are allegedly lighting up the country tonight using bunker buster bombs, hoping to finish the job in some way or another. After this week, Trump hinted at some type of major strike to hopefully get Iran to fall in line or collapse on itself or whatever might happen next. This is compounded with a brand new regime as it pertains to the Strait of Hormuz, where he's basically saying eye for an eye. For every oil tanker you fire upon, we're going to attack one piece of your infrastructure. And by the way, even use your own money to pay for the damages you cause, in reference, of course, to the frozen Iranian assets. And so this is hopefully a big system to finally get Iran to come back into line again, although at the same time, we certainly do understand the people here we are dealing with. They haven't exactly been acting rationally, arguably for a long time now, but especially even in regards to the recent memorandum of understanding and ceasefire, because we've pointed out time and time again, you would think if you were governing for the long-term prosperity of your country, the new government ought to say, hey, we sort of got out of this. We have rebuilding to do. We have an economy to save, all of those things. Instead, this is almost, and I know some people like to believe Iran came out stronger. I think that's obviously not true when you look at the way they're acting. These are the actions of almost a suicidal, defensive, flailing group of people who maybe understands that they're going down or their country's threatened, and basically their whole goal is, hey, let's not even try to rebuild our own economy or our country. Let's just try to drag everybody down with us. My theory on this, by the way, has kind of been that it's almost as if these new leaders understand there's a massive power vacuum. They just dealt with protests earlier this year. And so one could actually make the case, the reason they're prolonging and trying to drag out the war themselves is actually because they understand once peacetime comes, truly, they're going to have massive domestic problems on their hands. And so, hey, very convenient that you can just blame America, right? Wartime, let's rally the people together. Let's not make them divided against us, kind of honestly, the behavior I think is going on here. But nonetheless, let's talk about these current developments and maybe assess their likelihood to change the dynamics as it currently stands. I mean, certainly, I think I speak for a lot of us when we kind of do want this to be over. I mean, it's not a political situation that's helping us in the midterms. However, at the same time, you have a job to do, clearly, right? And you can't just surrender the whole Middle East to the Iranians. That's not going to help the oil prices even to begin with, much less other major geopolitical problems. And so here's all just hoping we can resolve this as quickly as possible. But obviously, you have a job to do at the same time. And so it's kind of a balancing act between the political concerns, domestic concerns, and hey, these lunatics can't shut down the entire global economy. So, another issue there. Anyways, let's talk about it. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. That is the best way to support our work, and it also ensures that you can stay up to date with all of the latest news and coverage. With that said, casual reminder, we've seen the U.S. military following through on some of the earlier threats from April of, hey, you keep messing around, Iran, we're going to start hitting infrastructure, right? Dual use infrastructure, also employed by the IRGC, but especially, things on the coastline, the way you commit violence in the Strait of Hormuz, but also power plants, bridges, things like that. Well, here's what Trump basically came out and it stated after some of the prior attacks earlier this week. The following reads, from this point forward, anytime the Islamic Republic of Iran shoots at a ship in the Strait of Hormuz, whether it be by missile, rocket, drone, or any other device or weapon, the United States will bomb and destroy one bridge or power plant, including those located next to or in the capital city of Tehran. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Which, by the way, seems to be a very fair system when you think about it. Okay, so they're going to go attack. Basically, it is infrastructure, right? But they're going to go attack the energy resources, oil tankers. And by the way, they have literally bombed the infrastructure, speaking about the Iranians, of countries like Kuwait, UAE, and others. So he's basically saying, hey, Iran, stop doing what you're doing, stop causing problems, or we're going to hit you, And again, you would think that if Iran is a rational country trying to think, hey, what's best for our own economic and domestic prosperity, losing a bunch of power plants and bridges probably is not it. Or facing, by the way, let's not forget, the US oil blockade that's been reinstated. Now they're trying to also do it over land, so that way the Iranian amount of oil profits that the IRGC and oligarchs are able to make goes to zero. So, you have to kind of ask, what are you thinking if money is your incentive, if it's the driving factor of the world? All they're doing here is losing a bunch of money. I mean, that's really what this is about. And infrastructure certainly is not always easy to rebuild. So, under any rational system, this ought to be this is completely a fair situation, by the way, is a fair presentation, but we know the Iranian response. They're, as usual, like the fundamentally third worldist that they are, and you kind of notice these patterns across a lot of these regimes and ideologies and movements, they cry out in pain as they strike you, right? They're going to go shoot at another oil tanker. Then when the U.S. bombs their bridge or whatever it is, they're going to say, oh, well, we were attacked for no reason. But again, maybe if we believe the theory, it's all to rally the people behind their own failures and keep them united during wartime. I guess that's something you can do, right? You can go to your domestic populace and say, hey, look, the U.S. blew up our bridge. You have to be against America. Will it work? I don't know. I'm sure it works to some extent, but, just notice how fundamentally dishonest and desperate that it is, right? Desperate that it is. Because if you were remotely operating from a position of strength, you wouldn't need to effectively, in a sense, is what they're doing, right? False flag, kind of, right? False flag your own people in order to, rile them up. But you know how this stuff goes. Likewise, though, Trump today came out with a further announcement, and here we go, hitting them even harder where it hurts. And this is in reference to those famous Iranian frozen assets, right? Basically, when the revolution happened, the money that their old government had tied up in bank accounts in this country, the IRGC, the Islamic government, for years has wanted it back. Well, it's been this sort of negotiating chip for America. But what we're now effectively saying is that, hey, all of the damage you do to the Strait of Hormuz, whether that's ships, cargo, infrastructure, whatever it is, we're going to pay to rebuild it. But guess what? We're going to be rebuilding it with what you consider, at least, with what you consider to be your own money. That is right. So President Trump has informed Iran that America not only will be creating this proportional, fair eye for an eye system when it comes to their practices in the Strait of Hormuz, but furthermore, will begin seizing their assets they're already seized, but using their assets, I should say, to pay for any and all damages done to ships, cargo, or anything related thereto. So, of course, a lot of people had the concern with the deal that, hey, what about that Iranian money? Why are we giving it to them? As it currently stands right now, the opposite is happening. Actually, that Iranian money is going to go away because it's going to be unfrozen and actively used to pay for the damages that Iran causes. So basically, effectively, what we're saying here is, hey, that money that you want, not only will we not give it to you, we're going to spend it and so that way you can't even ever have it back if you keep on continuing this practice and this regime, which, again, do we exactly have the highest hopes that it will make these people be rational? Not exactly, but in fairness, these are maybe certain things that we didn't really try before during Operation Epic Fury, which was intentional, by the way. Trump wanted to kind of leave a lot of things on the table so that way he would give the Iranians an exit and a path to a deal. But hey, after all, we try to make a deal, you're going to keep on violating ceasefires and things like that, then, you can kiss all of the things you wanted goodbye. So we'll see what happens, right? Let's all try to remain optimistic, but realistic at the same time. So that is also compounded with the fact that Trump is hinting at a massive attack on Iran. You can see Trump announces the U.S. is about to carry out a massive attack on Iran, in his own words, quote, way bigger than Operation Epic Fury and bigger than any attack carried out before, saying we are all set for it and close to making a decision. This is something that Trump told Axios directly.
They would like to do something, but I say they're not ready yet. They need more of the same. They're not ready yet. They got some evil intentions. We cannot let them have a nuclear weapon. If we did all this that I'm talking about your data centers, isn't that important? When they start blowing away communities one by one, we cannot let them ever even think about having a nuclear weapon. And that's exactly what's happening. They'll never have a nuclear weapon.
So I think it's safe to say this is not exactly a bluff because just hours after Trump made these statements, you can see on flight radars that a massive US air bridge is underway, basically moving from our bases over in Europe to the Middle East. And that coincides with the fact that apparently tonight we have just dropped 2,000-pound bombs on parts of Iran. It's unclear if this is the massive attack in question. Doesn't appear to be so, but this is us, again, clearly sending a message that we're willing to ramp this up. So take a listen.
Central Command delivering devastating blows against Iran. Targets include missile and drone facilities, coastal surveillance sites, and air defense. B-1 bombers tore into the mullahs for the first time since the ceasefire. The long-range jets packed with 2,000-pound bombs flying at the speed of sound. Our electronic warfare aircraft also headed into theater, deployed out of Maine. They're stopping over in the UK. And it jams enemy communications, radars, and navigation. And they're only in the fight when it's a real one. Once Iran caught wind, they threatened to bomb the British base. Good luck.
Yeah, so there's been many different points throughout the ceasefire that I've referred to as minor flare-ups, not something to get too riled up over, and that's usually true. But what I will say about this current situation is definitely this is much more than a minor flare-up. However long it lasts, this is certainly a full-scale resumption of military operations. And I don't think that's exactly something that you can deny at this point when you look at the sheer scale of fire and air power being moved to the Middle East, being deployed over Iran. Couple key takeaways about it. First and foremost, that is true, as you heard. The Iranians are apparently now threatening to bomb the UK, which, you know, you'd have to assume is probably an empty threat. And by the way, another situation of what are these people thinking? Because if you follow the geopolitical dynamic all the way back to March, you would certainly know that Europe has kind of had Iran's side in all of this. They haven't wanted to get involved, and granted, can they really get involved to begin with? It's probably an empty threat from the European side as well, because we've seen what their quote-unquote militaries look like in this current situation. So that's also true. But at the same time, you would think, hey, you know, don't burn the semi-American allies that are more favorable to you. Don't try to drag more global powers into the conflict, you know? But again, that assumes that these are people who are thinking remotely rationally, which they're not. You know, trying to start, you're already at war with America. Now they're saying, oh, let's try to drag the UK into it. You know, pretty ridiculous. But you know, obviously we'd assume that's an empty threat, but you never know. You never know. So that's something on one hand to make note of. On the other hand, though, I do further think it is very telling that, I don't know if you've noticed, but especially as of late, Trump has basically been telegraphing exactly what we are going to do. And make no mistake about it, that is a power move. Because historically, if you paid attention to anything about the way Trump carries out military strategy, he always wants the element of surprise for obvious tactical reasons. So usually you find out after the fact when something happened. But at this point, you know, it's basically been a cycle for the past 2 weeks. We will literally go out and say, tonight we are going to strike Iran. And almost like, here's what we're going to do in Iran. And then that's exactly what we end up doing. You know what that does tell you, though? And maybe should be a useful sign of where this conflict is, at least militarily, if not politically and economically, that we have total military and especially air superiority over Iran. That's what that means. And I bring that up because there was a lot of discussion that, hey, maybe we ended Epic Fury simply because, you know, people were claiming because that one F-15 got shot down, that Iran's air defenses have us figured out. You know, our military is not as advanced as we think. Look, the Iranians have caught up. Look, the third world jihadis really are onto us, you know, and it's kind of fueled by this underlying anti-American resentment. But I think you clearly see right now, no, that's not true. You know, there's all this talk. Iran rebuilt their air defenses. Okay, maybe they did. Clearly, they still don't work. But much more likely is that also, you know, we kind of just have free reign over that country because they don't have air defenses. They're a complete joke. Basically, the only leverage this country has is the ballistic missiles in which they, tuck away into mountains. They're hard to hit. They're all hard to all eliminate. And sure, that's a threat that they especially pose to, say, the region, to the Middle East especially. But, in terms of conventional military or anything, resembling a conventional military, basically doesn't exist. Whatever did exist, we wiped it out, as you clearly saw. They're trying to control the Strait of Hormuz without a navy. This is all kind of one big joke. And so, just something to take notes of. But, I'm going to reiterate my general stance is that whatever we have to do, let's do it. But I just hope this is resolved quickly because, oil prices, beating the Democrats in the midterm still does matter to me. That's a balancing act, but you still got to do what you got to do. Arguably, that might be a case for intensifying strikes right now, right? Don't play games. Just like if whatever ace card you have militarily, just throw it right at them right now, right? 100% maximum power, because we don't have time anymore. November is approaching. November is coming, right? We don't have the time to sit around and play this waiting game. Hey, let's hit them a little bit. Let's tap them and see if they back off or they negotiate. At this point, no, you can't do that, right? So whatever you have to do to make these people come to the table, then that's what you got to do, right? But anyways, that said, let me know your thoughts on this, guys, in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.